Good evening. There may always be a few who are first timers to the IndiQuay, especially this series. So we'll do a very brief recap, revisit of some important aspects before we get into the topic for today's session. So when we say superior, becoming a superior person, we're not referring to becoming superior in comparison with Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa, but superior only with respect to ourselves. And even in our day-to-day lives, we would have met many people from maybe within our family, our teachers, neighbors, friends, colleagues, who have displayed some superior aspect in the manner in which they either handle the situation or handle the relationship. And therefore, in all these sessions, our focus is first to understand who is the superior person, and then approach it with three modules within each session. The first, which we call the power of ordinariness, and that is our strong belief that there is nothing ordinary about ordinary people. Many of them have many special aspects, and therefore we learn from the power of ordinariness. Same, the second aspect we call learning from the Lilliputians, and these are many people all around us, and as we share some examples even during this session, you will know what we mean by learning from the Lilliputians. And the third module in every session is towards becoming superior. Some aspects that we need to learn towards becoming superior, all of that aimed at consistent performance leading to success and joy in life.
So good evening. As JK was mentioning, quick recap, but with a slightly maybe different aspect of what we are trying to do here. So when we say becoming a superior person, very clearly towards success and joy, what we have tried to show through these three modules in the last 5 sessions is that a slightly different focus in ourselves transforms us from being ordinary to superior. That is, usually our focus is on our personal betterment. Nothing wrong with that. However, if that can be also made to be of a slightly larger purpose, a bigger purpose, include, a better product, a better help, something slightly more than me, myself, starting to see superior quality of action, a greater peace in ourselves, a little more equanimity, less stress. Just that broadening of purpose seems to bring a lot more success, peace. And there is a lovely example that we will be touching upon of how that change in focus can be transformative. So this is about self-development and how to continuously learn how to become better and better and become superior. JK, back to you.
So we've already covered, you will find that we have deliberately chosen in each title superior via something which we normally believe is the right thing, like greatness, and then we replace it with ordinariness, which could be its opposite. But by bringing the focus, therefore, to such aspects, we are able to put forward different ways in which people really are superior, not via qualifications, but competencies, not smartness, but sincerity and genuineness, not knowledge, but wisdom and common sense, not being a leader, but being a follower. And last time, those who attended know the little twist when we said being a follower, not being a follower of people, but being a follower of certain principles and practices which take us much farther and higher than just being a leader. We get into today's session, which is about not via achievement, but via contribution. We'll get into the details, and these other sessions follow between the next 4 months.
No, JK. Oh.
So if you look at the topic for this session, superior, not via achievement, which all of us understand, but via contribution, we want to bring the focus to saying that while achievement is important, that when we start looking at, like Ram very rightly said in his opening remarks, when you widen your mind to become more inclusive, you can really become superior. And we're going to see some really good examples during this session. So we want to revisit 3 aspects which are important, especially for people who are first-timers to this series. One, who is the superior person? We're going to list out here so that we get an understanding of who the superior person is. And then in the next 2 slides, we'll cover how do you become the superior person, and we will understand 2 aspects which are important towards becoming a superior person. So we want to say no pettiness, no comparisons, no jealousy, happy for others. The superior person has no judgment, so it's very minimal, and therefore very fulfilling relationships. No expectations are very minimal, and therefore nothing surprises and nothing angers. And like Ram said, it's beyond me, me, me. He or she is not the center of the universe, and very encompassing welfare and happiness of others. Take responsibility for his or her life. This is key. This is key, and we are focused on this in all our different series. It's about continuous effort and action. Minimal disturbances and how to reduce them we have covered in different sessions, and therefore equanimous and happy is the superior person. And we used 2 more terms just to bring this into focus to say the superior person has what we are referring to as a fragrant personality, not a perfumed personality, not something put on, but the fragrance is inherent, and therefore it's fragrance that we are talking about in the superior person, not a perfumed personality.
So in order to be successful, we say that the quality of our action needs to be really good, consistent and good. In order to be consistent and good, we should not be disturbed. Moment we are disturbed, thinking about some worry from the past or some anxiety of the future, then we miss out on the quality, and therefore on the quality of our action. And therefore we say, how do we, and that's this last focus here, equanimous. How do we stay as calm as possible in different situations that we face every day, different relationships we face every day? How can we be equanimous? And how can we be least disturbed? And therefore, we talk about some of the strengths, the muscles, and what we need to let go to have minimal disturbance. So that is what this is about. In the past, JK has brought a doll to some of these sessions, which when you knock, goes sideways, back and forth. It rocks on its base. Doesn't fall, but it rocks. And so are we all the time getting knocked by the world to and fro? We may not fall, we may not break, but we are disturbed. The moment we are in that condition, our quality of our action, the quality of our relationship suffers, which is why that focus and those who can be become superior. JK.
So like Ram said, towards becoming a superior person, we have addressed saying there are some aspects we need to let go, and there are some aspects we need to acquire. And for those who are first timers, we are referring to it as odors of the mind. All of us are familiar with the odors of the body. It could be bad breath, it could be body odor, all of which affects us and affects people around us. And therefore, in a very similar manner, we took the parallel to say there are odors of the mind, and we need to become conscious that, hey, these odors of the mind, they too can affect people around us, can affect us also if left unattended. And there's negative emotions, individualistic ego, expectations, likes and dislikes, a judgmental nature, a self-centered nature. Some affect performance, some affect relationships, but we are summarizing them as the odors of the mind. Those who are first timers take the parallel of the odors of the body and say, hey, therefore, all of us may be having the odors of the mind. We may not even be conscious that we have these odors. It's important to get rid of these odors for us to move towards becoming that superior person. Before I ask Ram, I covered this also, and therefore what to acquire, we call them the Indic muscles. We have covered this in earlier sessions, but summarizing to say all of these in terms of different muscles which we have referred to, whether we call them acceptance or what next, or building the positive emotions and using the buddhi or the intellect, various aspects which are available in us. These are not to get acquired from somewhere outside of us. It's all within us. We just need to understand and then nurture these muscles for them to become available for us. All of which, whether it is letting go of the odors or acquiring and building these muscles, assist us towards an objective of becoming a superior person and towards success and joy.
So, Chand, you had pointed out that superior has some negative connotation. JK, it's in the chat box. So, Chand, the superior has a negative connotation when we are comparing with somebody else. This superior person is a comparison with me, myself. And my journey to improvement, to that fulfillment, to that enlightenment that you're saying, which is the self-actualization sometime. But this is like the Japanese Kaizen, constantly becoming better and better by different steps that we have covered over time. By learning from what we say may be ordinary people, ordinary situations, everyday things, by just being aware of what's happening around us, can we become better and better, a superior person I am to yesterday. So the comparison is with me and not with anybody else. Moment it is with anybody else, then I totally agree with you, there is a negative connotation. This is, am I better today than I was maybe yesterday or this morning? So that's the reason why we are saying superior here. So JK, back to you.
I think it's an important thing, Chand. Happy that you raised this. And just to add to what Ram said, we are wanting to use superior as a superior aspect, which is why even in ordinary people, many of the examples we have given in our earlier sessions, all are around ordinary people, but that they exhibit some superior aspect in the manner in which they either address the situation or a relationship or at that point how they handle themselves. So that superior, like Ram said, is not in comparison with something. It is not a status sort of a thing, but it is aspects which we display, and therefore, like Ram said, becoming just superior to my own earlier self in some form. So let's get into the current session. The focus to say, hey, achievement is important, but there's an aspect which we need to understand, which can be even higher than that particular aspect, which we call intuition. And we want to start, all of you who have been in the earlier sessions will remember that we have taken wise words from many philosophers. many places. We read from Confucius, from Einstein, different at different times. We found that Rabindranath Tagore's this poem, which all of us would have gone through, is so relevant to the current session. Ram, I would request you to read this out as I.
Sure. So, as you know, Rabindranath Tagore wrote a collection of poems in his book Gitanjali, and this is poem number 35. So, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. This is a line that actually echoes, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arm towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habits, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action. Into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake.
So Ram, I want to start with something and then you may have,
Sure.
and then we want now each one of you to share some of your thoughts. You know, I have won some, I don't know what we call that, some elocution competition or something at school by mugging up this particular poem and then reciting it without understanding one word or one sentence of what it really represents. And when went through it very recently and some years ago, I really found its power and I would say questioning to say that last line to me became so important. Heaven of freedom. So let my country, this he has written maybe just before independence, or it has been even earlier, but throughout the struggle. I mean, not that he wrote it before the independence, wrote it much earlier, but very relevant at the time of independence to say, hey, what is that independence? What is it that my country should be? I found very powerful thoughts in every line in terms of what it was. And so when Ram and I were discussing this, we said, hey, we must put forward to say, if I look at myself and if each one of us look at ourselves,
JK? Okay.
I think
He's
we've
gone.
lost it.
We let him come back. As we look at ourselves, are we in some way captive? What holds us captive? What is our understanding of freedom? When do we say we are free? Because with freedom comes some joy. So just to have a debate, an understanding of any one of you or few of you who want to talk about our captivity or freedom, what is the difference in our own personal lives? What are we looking for? Our understanding of freedom. Anybody? Saurav, if you see any hands or just people, you can just unmute and start. I'm seeing some very senior coaches here, Mustafa, Chand, Ashok. So, anybody? JK, am I waiting for response on the question of what is freedom? What
So
is
you're
captivity?
muted, sir. JK, sir, you're muted.
Yeah. Anybody?
Yeah. I'm back on the mobile. My computer just locked up for some reason.
Okay.
I think it is about, this is Jayashree. I think it is about doing whatever you want, whenever you want, but I think it is not practical at all because we have so many things around us. So is it purely theoretical or is it practical possible?
So we are captives is what you're saying.
In practice, in reality.
Okay. All right.
In
Right,
reality.
Jayashree. Okay. Anybody else?
Because we
Avi?
cannot do whatever we want, without considering others, being a responsible person.
So a definition of freedom is wanting to do anything
Whatever
we
I
want.
whenever I want, yes.
All right. Okay. That's a one way of
To break a
defining.
glass, I should throw a stone and break the glass. That's a feat. I want to do whatever I want, but is that
Yeah. Okay.
Ram, Viren here.
Yeah, Viren.
So I think, right now, how freedom is being perceived as wanting to do whatever one wants to do without being restricted, but also without worrying about the other person's freedom. But I would think that what Tagore is trying to refer is that while we do what we feel is good for us, it ought not to be bad for the other person also. And we have an environment where there is freedom to think, freedom to act, totally being conscious that we are not hurting anybody else. I was very conscious of talking with such great people around. I was not confident of talking also, nevertheless.
Right. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Vasudevan.
Yes, Vasu.
Always talking about doing or having. I think we should talk about being also. I want to be free to be anybody I want. Be a singer or a dancer or an engineer or a manager, whatever I want to be. Or if you want to be a Hindu or a Christian or a Muslim, any ideology. That is, freedom starts at that level. Then once you decide what you want to be, you can decide on what are you free to do or free to have. I think the freedom should start from what you want to be, rather than what you want to do or think or have. That is my view about this.
Yeah. So, Ram, I want to request Saurav, you please start the presentation because my computer suddenly started rebooting and it's updating all sorts of things. So,
Yes, sir. We've already started sharing the screen now.
okay. Hey, thanks, Vasu. I mean, nice of those. So, Ram, I want to say the question more is, therefore, towards some of those lines. I do know Jayashree's comments, but whether my words come from the depth of truth. These sorts of questioning define some aspects about whatever we're referring to as the superior aspects in ourselves, and whether I'm able to cross these narrow walls, narrow domestic walls, very nicely presented, are aspects we can think about. So that was what Ram and I had in mind when we said we need to get some inputs. But let's move into the important aspects of today's session. So, Saurav, if you can move to the next slide, please. So achievement is no doubt important. Okay, we have stressed this in all our sessions that it's about consistent performance, achievement towards reaching potential. So achievement certainly is important. It's a measurement of action, progress, success towards reaching potential. Certainly important. Saurav, next slide, please. However, achievement is still connected with the individual. It's me, my family, my company. So it's about me, my marks, my prizes or my successes in some form. And we want to move to saying that there is an aspect which is superior to achievement, and that is contribution. Where contribution, when the moment you say contribution, it's connected to the progress of others. And you will find, therefore, we have put down 3 aspects in this, and I will request Ram to then elaborate to say, it's like being a ladder. We know many teachers are of that, where they are still staying where they are in the school, but so many have climbed that ladder to move up and move towards their own progress. Many who are the wind beneath my wings. I am soaring. I am up there. But there's somebody else who's powering that particular ability of me to soar. It could be coaches, it could be mentors, it could be parents, it could be many who give that uplift for many others to soar. And it is towards that lending a hand for many other things. So Ram.
So achievement is not lost. This is not either or. But like I said in the beginning, the broader our purpose, the wider our purpose, we are able to look at the well-being. It's like a team. How do we look at the welfare of the team? Then it makes the institute better. It makes me more successful. So wind beneath my wings is something that is being powered. And in TIE, everywhere, we are looking at mentors. And most time, mentors are giving their time, their knowledge to help to bring that wind beneath the young entrepreneur's wings to take off. So that attitude of wanting to give, it is not at our cost of anything to us. It starts with a mind shift, an attitude of wanting to help. And that is how mentoring is such a big thing, where just that attitude to want to share experience is really helping entrepreneurs soar to the sky. Saurav?
Yeah, next slide, Saurav.
You just keep clicking.
Now leave it at the first one,
Yeah.
and then when I tell you, you move to the next one. First, you please display line 1. Yeah. So there's lovely little anecdote. There's a dinner meeting. Many important people in that dinner. Some are very large CEOs and some others public figures. When we're sitting around, the discussion moves to education in the country. And one of them, who's a CEO, he says, look, the problem of education, the best of people from colleges go on to other jobs, and only some of the others who are left behind take up the role of teachers. And when that is so, how do you expect, high quality of education? And he looks next to him. So Mary is seated there. Hey, Mary, I know you're a teacher. Hey, honestly, just tell me, what do you make? So Mary is a upright, confident, middle-aged woman. And so she takes a minute and says, hey, you want to know what I make? Okay. I make children work harder. I make them sit in class for 40 minutes when you all as parents can't make them sit quiet for 5 minutes at home. I make them wonder. I make them question. I make them take responsibility and show respect. I make them apologize and mean it. I make them read, write, do math. I make them use their brains. And you still want to know what I make? I make them understand. And I make them understand if they work harder and use their talents, they can succeed. I make a difference in their lives. and help them to become doctors, engineers, and CEOs. And turns back to this gentleman and says, "What do you make, Mr. CEO?" Ram?
Yeah, so go ahead, JK. This is just to say that writing a check, contributing through money is certainly helpful, but contribution goes beyond that, and just being available, helping out. And so this is a fantastic anecdote to talk about much beyond money. JK.
Yeah, next 2-3 lines, Saurav. Yeah, so it can be contribution of time, contribution of effort, knowledge, expertise, and wisdom. We have covered that very briefly. I want to now pause at the most important part of our body. So there's this young girl, always has conversations with her mother, and the mother will ask her, "What do you think is the most important part of your body?" So the girl, during her younger days, she thought, sound was such a wonderful thing. So she said, our ears, because we can hear everything beautiful around us. Mother will say, "No, but there are many people who can't hear, they are deaf. But you're thinking, well, we'll talk about it." Few years later, again, the mother in some other occasion said, "Hey, what do you think is the most important part of your body?" By then the girl thinks, "You know what, I can see so many wonderful things." And so she says, "My eyes are the most important." The mother again says, "No, but there are many people who are blind, but you're thinking well, and we'll talk about it some other time." So like that, over a period of time, off and on, she will ask that same question, "What is the most important part of your body?" Sometimes the girl said, "My hand, my legs." Okay, different aspects. So all of that, at different times, her mother will say, "No, you're thinking well, but you need to think better." And then there was an occasion when girl's grandfather passed away, and they were all gathered around, and for the first time, this young girl, she would have been maybe 15, 16 at that time, saw her father crying, and she has never seen her father crying before that. And as she was standing there around, and it was their turn to pay final respects to the grandfather, her mother again popped this question to her: "What is the most important part of your body?" Till then, the girl had always thought this was just a game between the two of them. And suddenly she was thinking, "Hey, this is serious." And as she was sort of trying to get her own thoughts together, her mother said, "You might have thought this was a game, but it's a very important thing. And now is the time for you to get this lesson. The most important part of your body are your shoulders." She's a little stuck. Why? Is it because it holds up my head? No, it's not because it holds up your head, but it can hold the head of others who need that support in moments like these, a shoulder to cry on, and you will realize that this is the most important part of your body. It suddenly struck that girl that all the answers that she had given so far about the important part of her body was for her own benefit, selfish reasons, but the way her mother had put forward, the shoulders are not for her, but the shoulders are there for others to lay their heads in a moment when they feel down and they need a shoulder to cry on. And it brings across the same thing, that it's that aspect which is more than ourselves, which then identifies that the shoulders are the most important part of the body because it's available for others. Ram?
No, JK, next week.
Okay, next line. So all of these important aspects, I remember another very interesting anecdote. There was an uncle of mine. He took over as in charge of a temple trust in the 1930s. It was in the 1930s. And he was just sharing this with us when we were kids. And he said, I went to that to take over responsibility. And as I entered the temple, my foot hit that small raised step and I stumbled. And I was thinking to myself, oh, what a bad omen. I've come to this particular thing. I've stumbled. Sagunam sariyalla pol irukku. There was an elderly gentleman sitting near the entrance of the temple who saw me and who saw what happened. He immediately said, this is a wonderful omen. This will make sure that you do very well in the task that you have taken. Don't worry, young man. You're going to be very, very successful. Just those words, whether they were true or not true, the words at that moment, my uncle said, completely calmed my mind. And I said, yes, this is a good omen and I'm going to do well. And went on to spend 2-3 years at that place wonderfully. So just those words, just remember that same gentleman, that elderly man could have said, Ennappa, Sagunam sarilla, kaal tadikuduthu, and that could have really caused havoc in my uncle's mind. But he chose to present, maybe true or maybe that was what he said. Wonderful at that occasion to lend that contribution. Ram?
No, let's move to the next.
Saurabh, please move to the next. So we want to address, this is the most important. What powers contribution? What thought or attitude powers achievement? Anybody? First, let's start with that. We pause there, Saurabh. What thought or attitude powers achievement? Anybody would like to share?
I think it's about helping other people play to
No,
their
no,
potential.
achievement first, John. What thought or attitude powers achievement first?
No, to me, achievement is about helping others succeed, not about helping myself.
No, we want to define this achievement as an individual achievement. What powers the individual to achieve?
Self-confidence,
Very nice.
ego,
Yes,
Yes, very nice.
a sense of commitment and focus.
Very nice.
Desire to reach a goal,
Yes,
deep desire.
yes, yes, yes.
Belief in themselves.
Very nice. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Some desire.
A sense of purpose.
Yes.
Desire, I mean, it's also purpose.
Yep. So if we summarize, I think all of you had wonderful inputs to offer. Saurabh, if you can just go to the next line, please. Therefore, it is this thought. I can do anything. We have covered this in earlier sessions when we spoke about our own ahamkara and ego and say that's a very positive side of it because the ahamkara shapes the will and determination in us, which is what makes us achieve. And therefore, this powering thought is, I can do anything. And that powering thought helps me then to put in the effort and put in all that necessary towards achievement. Next line, Saurabh, hold that where. Now we want to again get inputs from you. What powers contribution? What thought or attitude powers contribution?
Taking ownership.
Ownership.
I have enough.
sharing,
I have enough. Okay.
sharing,
Sharing, yes.
The required skill, I mean, that is important for the contribution.
Pardon?
The skill required.
Okay.
The joy of giving.
Joy of giving, lovely, Chan. Yes. That thought itself powers.
A sense of community.
Sense of community.
I mean, bigger self rather than individual self.
Yes.
Joy of
Sense
seeing
that-
happiness in others.
Very lovely. Sudhir, great.
A sense that one is actually a part and not the whole.
Very nice. Yes. So we want to summarize. We want to summarize all those inputs. All of you have given very, very relevant, important aspect that powers contribution. I'm again coming back to what is, because without that thought and that attitude in us, any action doesn't happen. Because the thought precedes that action, and the thought and the attitude powers contribution. So, Saurav, if you can move that to the next line. We just want to take that very first line and twist that word from the end to the first to say, whereas achievement is powered by this thought or attitude, I can do anything. Contribution is powered by, hey, anything I can do? Question mark. So anything I can do is that thought that powers that action which we take next. I want all of us to think about, I'm sure all of us have been contributors in many, many ways, maybe money, maybe time, maybe knowledge, maybe effort, all of those which we spoke of in the previous one. So the first thing that powers, it has to start with, is there anything I can do? So anything I can do, as opposed to I can do anything, we want to present this more so that it's easy for us to look at it to say, this anything I can do is the powering thought or attitude which leads to contribution. Ram?
So, the other day we've had, after a long time, a physical meeting of a few friends at a hall. And we all landed up there and found that the hall was there. The chairs had not been set up. And so the whole thing was saying, shucks, yeah, we are paying so much. These guys could have done this. What's happening? Everybody was trying to find who to blame, who to shout at, whatever it is. But there was this one guy, Prakash. All that he did was he just went, picked up 2 chairs, put it one place, picked up another 2. And before we realized it, everything had been set up by him. He didn't grumble. He didn't say anything. He just went. And he had come like us to have, after a long break, a chance to meet and talk and have some fun. And all that he did was, anything I can do, let me just do it. And just showed us. And by the time, then after that, of course, the whole attitude of everybody else changed. And everybody was trying to see, can I pick up this? Can I do that? The entire environment changed. No more cribbing. What can I do? So just that one person's attitude to what can I do rather than crib changed the whole environment for us and made it a pleasant evening, actually. JK?
Thanks, Ram. So, Saurav, you can just do the next 2 lines there. So just to summarize, we want to say
one more line
that
yeah,
the can-do attitude, it's important, leads to achievement, but is there anything I can do is a wonderful thought and attitude for us to imbibe, because that really moves towards contribution. The next slide, please.
How do we imbibe that? Are there any
We are coming to, we're going to come to 1 or 2 aspects now in terms of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in everything, in earlier sessions also, we've addressed to say, there are some orders in the mind which come in the way of us doing or not doing something. And there are some muscles which help us really gain more power to do that aspect. And we will look at this in the same way as far as contribution is concerned. So if you look at the orders of the mind, that first line, letting go, pettiness, jealousy, envy, and like very rightly in that Tagore's poem, which is what Ram pointed it out at that time, can I move beyond those narrow domestic walls? Because the moment I am in that narrow domestic walls, it is still me and my family and me and my family. Nothing wrong with that. It's a very important aspect. It's part of our responsibilities. But as we move outside the narrow boundaries, leaving aside the pettiness is a very important aspect in terms of moving to contribution. And the next line, I want to talk to you all about a wonderful concept that I read in our own ancient literature, which
Next
is
line.
called, next line please, Saurabh, called Hridaya Granthi. Hridayam, all of us know. Hridayam is the heart. Granthi is a knot. K-N-O-T. The Hridaya Granthi are knots in the heart caused by all these petty me, mine, and aspects which cause greater attachment to my possessions, my own, going forward, my progress. So the Granthi or the knots are the ones which cause us to remain limited. So the Hridaya Granthi is the knot that needs to be removed. And that knot gets removed only as we address, and we're going to talk about what it is to get a larger heart. The knots to be removed is the way only by addressing. So it is first to become aware that it is limiting the way in which I'm looking at something. So those with the knots in the heart, when an occasion presents, they may actually start saying, hey, why the hell should I do anything here? That's where it starts. You know the moment somebody says that there is a knot in the heart, there is pettiness in the manner in which that person is looking at something, because the first question that arises in their minds is, why should I do anything? As opposed to anything I can do, it is why should I do it? So we want us to be just aware that the knots in the heart are the ones that come in the way, and they limit what we do or how we approach. Ram?
So this is the captivity, not the opposite of the freedom that we were talking about. So if you looked, Raja, you were asking how. The question is, starting point is awareness. Second is, Prakash's example itself is a learning that gives us an opportunity that next time there is an opportunity. Even that evening itself, many were moving forward, picking up things and kind of helping everybody. So first is an awareness, learning by observing others. But the key is every one of these pettiness, jealousy, ego that comes in the way, what will people think that I'm moving chairs, is what makes us captive, smaller rather than larger and free. We're looking, what do other people do? What will somebody think to what is right thing to do? So that, I think, is what limits us. And just that awareness and taking the next step every time, Raja will help us move in this direction. Slowly, slowly. It's not a miracle. We keep saying that, like I used to give this example, going from Nungambakam, where I live, to Tidal Park. Every day I used to see how many kilometers before I lose my temper at the auto or the bike coming in my way. So it doesn't go overnight. I don't think it's gone even now fully, but it's a journey of improvement constantly for ourselves. And the more we are able to overcome, the more free we become. We are not influenced by other people and others' behavior. That is the freedom. Yeah, JK.
Yeah, next two lines, please, Saurav. And therefore, whatever we have summarized, we want to say is therefore acquiring the large heart and pure mind. Happy for myself, certainly, but happy for others too. Towards happiness and well-being, it's always important. There's nothing wrong. Me, my family, my circle is our first responsibility. But this larger thing then says that anything which presents itself that our mind can look at to say, hey, is there anything I can do, is a wonderful way for us to get beyond that Hridaya Granthi and start to look at some way to contribute. Next slide, please.
So, JK,
Yeah.
there is that example for the previous one of, by looking at the larger picture, looking at contribution, having this larger heart, am I a loser? Will I be successful? Or by helping others, am I going to be letting others overtake me in whatever be my mission? So I came upon JK and I saw this little thing that's going around on WhatsApp, which I thought was most relevant to this point about by trying to be a contributor, by having a larger heart, do I lose? And do I miss out on my achievement? So this is the story of John D. Rockefeller.
I thought that was the first, Ram. I wanted you to introduce it in the next one, the muscle.
Okay.
So just move to the next slide. Yes, of course,
okay.
This is the one. The next slide. Yeah, here, the first thing, what we are referring to as building the contribution muscle, it is towards this, Ram, that I want you to share this Rockefeller's anecdote. Yeah.
All right.
Please.
So Rockefeller was once the richest man in the world. He was the first billionaire in the world. By age 25, he controlled one of the largest oil refineries in the US. By age 31, he had become the world's largest oil refiner. By age 38, he commanded 90% of the oil refined in the US. By 50, he was the richest man in the country. By the time he died, he had become the richest man in the world. As a young man, every decision, attitude, and relationship was tailored to create his personal power and wealth. But at the age of 53, he became ill. His entire body became racked with pain and he lost all his hair. In complete agony, the world's only billionaire could buy anything he wanted, but he could only digest soup and crackers. An associate wrote, he could not sleep, would not smile, and nothing in his life meant anything to him. His personal, highly skilled physicians predicted he would die within a year. That year passed agonizingly slow. As he approached death, he awoke one morning with the vague realization of not being able to take any of his wealth with him into the next world. The man who could control the business world suddenly realized he was not in control of his own life. He was left with a choice. He called his attorneys, accountants, and managers and announced that he wanted to channel his assets to hospitals, research, and charity work. Rockefeller established his foundation. This new direction eventually led to the discovery of penicillin, cures for malaria, tuberculosis, and diphtheria. But perhaps the most amazing part of Rockefeller's story is that the moment he began to give back a portion of all that he had earned, his body's chemistry was altered so significantly that he actually got better. It looked as if he would die at 53, but he lived to be 98. Rockefeller learned gratitude and gave back the vast majority of his wealth. Doing so made him whole. It is one thing to be healed. It is another to be made whole. Before his death, he wrote this in his diary. I was taught to work as well as play. My life has been one long, happy holiday, full of work and full of play. I dropped the worry on the way, and God was good to me every day. The joy of giving is the joy of living. John D. Rockefeller. Back to you, JK.
Amazing one, Ram. So it underlines that first line we want to say, therefore, building the contribution muscle is moving away, moving from looking after myself. Next. Moving from, why should I do anything? And therefore, the next one, if you see, we all know we all know the story of the squirrel in Ramayana. So whenever we are saying contribution, it's nothing, whatever I can do, it's that little bit. It's not about whether mine is $1 million or mine is 100 rupees. Or it's not even money. It's that effort, and we want to list out 2, 3 very ordinary things, aspects where it's how we respond. So it's like the squirrel in Ramayana. No need to elaborate on that. The next one. So there is this lovely Sanskrit Subhashitani I read in school. It goes like Vidya Vidati Vinayam. That is, education leads to modesty. Vinaya Dhyati Patratam. That modesty leads to character. Patratva Dhanam Apnoti. That from character, then I acquire wealth. Dhanat Dharmam Tatasukam. That leads to charity and helping others. Then only the happiness really happens. So couplets like these, many of us would know. There are many such things. There's one lovely thing all of us know about, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is part of the Maha Upanishad. Same thing. It's about moving away from me, mine, my relative, that person is a stranger, to rather encompassing the totality as what the larger minds would do, whereas the smaller minds would look at my family, and the other person is a stranger. So these are all only thoughts to say, how do we build this contribution muscle? By first letting go and understanding that there are knots in the heart, the Hridaya Granthis which need to go, and it's only becoming aware, and it's not about money, but there's always something I can do, twisting around, why should I do anything, to, is there anything I can do? So that's what we wanted to summarize. We move forward, Saurav. So we have listed out saying just ordinary, what we call ordinary or Lilliputian needs. This will happen every day in our life. Somebody will come and say, hey, my son needs a job. My daughter is not married yet. Something else, my watchman needs a cataract operation. Many things. All of us would have faced these sorts of things. How we respond? Do we respond saying, hey, what can I do? Yeah, I can do nothing about it. Or, hey, I want to take that resume, forward it to a few people, talk to somebody. Or I know in all our families, anybody says, my daughter is not married, they'll immediately say, okay, send me the horoscope. I know so-and-so, I know so-and-so, which is the automatic mind working to saying, hey, is there anything I can do? And then responding to those occasions. Ram?
No, you can go ahead, JK.
So that is what we wanted to share as saying both from the orders of the mind that need to be let go and the contribution muscle that needs to be built, for us to look at one superior aspect, something superior to achievement is important, but superior to achievement is to build this attitude of contribution, always looking at, is there anything I can do? Next slide, please. Sorry.
Yeah, keep moving.
So, superior among the ordinary, I request Dr. Sudhir, leading consultant at Shankar Netralaya, very eminent professional, a very good dear friend of mine. He wanted to share something. He's been attending the last couple of sessions of the Indic series. Sudhir, I request you to share that anecdote.
Thank you, Mr. JK, for the
Great. Sudhir, you also said you wanted to share a couple of minutes on that 6 categories.
One second. I also, I just post it on the, so I was also reading about categories of people. There are, first category is the highest, where people even try to suffer but want to find happiness and give joy and for the welfare of others. The second category is what probably we are looking at, helping others and giving others happiness and contentment. And the last category in this is
the lowest category of people are those who don't mind suffering personal loss to harm others. Probably even the terrorist would be a thing. And I also looked at the example of Yudhishthira, I think in the Mahabharata, when he, after his, for all the good things he has done, they said you'll be going to heaven, but for small things which you have done, you have to go to hell for few moments and then come to heaven. So he actually went to hell. When he went to hell, the people in the hell were so happy because he had come and the happiness he could see. And then he said, no, I'm not going to heaven. I'll be happy to stay in hell because I could see happiness in many of them. So this is kind of people we actually look and get motivated. Thank you.
Thanks, Sudhir. Lovely. The next line, please, Saurav. Yeah, this is something I seen. I moved into a new office. It was a new office complex. We were one of the first to take office space there. We might have been about 10, 15 people at that time when we started in that office. And there was this young boy who was serving tea and coffee for us, Krishnan Kutty. You would have seen them all, you know, they do this in many buildings. They come in their bicycle, they'll have 3-4 baskets filled with flasks, one with milk, one with some, coffee decoction or tea and stuff. They carry that and they mix and match and they serve you coffee or tea. So Krishnan Kutty was doing this for us regularly every day, morning and afternoon. And like he did for our office, as the other offices in the building started getting occupied, he started serving tea, coffee for some of them too. So in a few years, he was a regular, well-established. Our own office and the number of people grew and many other offices in that complex. And he started to become really busy. After some 4-5 years, I found that instead of Krishnan Kutty, there was another young boy who was starting to serve coffee in our office. So when I asked our administrative manager what happened, he said, this young boy is from his village. When he went there, he found that their family was not doing well. So he has brought him to Chennai and the boy is staying with him. And he's sort of teaching that boy on how to do this tea, coffee serving. And so that boy didn't know much of Tamil, was still Malayalam in terms of his basic language, but finding his feet. And he was serving for us and we said, okay, it's not a problem. And Krishnan Kutty was serving by then in another building. And then in a couple of years, this young boy had completely taken over our building. And then my administrative manager said, look, it has been like this. Krishnan Kutty has brought 3 or 4 young boys from his village, all of them from very needy families. And each one, he has established them in different buildings around T Nagar, taught them the business, supported them when they were here, and made sure that all of them had some progress. So to me, it was a wonderful thing to say, Krishnan Kutty, a tea and coffee vendor, is doing very well today. Of course, he's doing very well today, serving same tea and coffee, but in many, many places. But he has helped 3 or 4 families from his village to progress, and for those families really to come forward with whatever knowledge he possesses. So to me, it's a great thing as a sense of contribution over and above the achievement that Krishnan Kutty as an individual has had. Next, please. So, learnings from both these anecdotes, what Sudhir had shared and my own experience with Krishnan Kutty. Anybody? Learnings from these anecdotes?
If you're actually interested in others, it gives you a great sense of joy to help others, and also, your self-esteem goes up, and also, automatically, you get the blessings of the superpower, And you spoke about the story of Krishna Kuti, right? So he's also doing extremely well in his business. So those good vibrations come to Kuti also for all the help he had done to the other 4 families. So that's what I think.
Yeah, nice.
Helping others didn't take away from him, it added.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
the key, that
Yeah.
you're not losing out.
Is there a minute? Can I add something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Viren?
So this is about this. I run an NGO with him now called Victory Foundation. So how I met him is he used to be a trainer in our gym. And one day he said that, sir, I'm doing a small event. So please come and view it. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to distribute glasses and textbook glasses to old people and textbooks to students. I said, but I know your salary is 1,000 rupees. Your father is an alcoholic. So where do you get this money? He says, Vanga sir, pakla. So I was like very perplexed. I went and I went for the event the next day, and he had about 50 old people whom he was distributing glasses to. He had organized a cataract operation camp about a week back for them, and then some textbooks. So I was like amazed really, because I used to keep on thinking that I should help this person. He's a nice person. I should help him. So when everything was over, I asked him, so where did you get the money from? He said, sir, kunja anga kadan vaangna, inga kunja PF loan eduthen. I was like amazed. Eppadi idella pannuve sir, nadakkum. That day I realized that most of us, or many of us, or at least me, I used to keep waiting that when I have adequate, I will start helping. And I realized that if I keep thinking when I have adequate, I'll help, I will never have adequate to help. People who want to contribute will just contribute, not waiting for me to have enough. So that was a huge inspiration.
Great,
very nice one. Yeah. Great. So Saurav, move to the next line, please. So learning certainly all powered by, how can I help? Anything I can do. And that's what's moving to this contribution. And like Ram said, and Viren's nice input to say, hey, my contribution is not coming in the way of my own achievement and my own progress. That still continues. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, doing something ordinary. Anybody? Otherwise, I'm going to request Ram to share something that he said he himself tried, and it was a little different.
Folks, you're going to hear anecdotes from JK and me unless you guys step up, huh? Please. It will only be JK and me's, our
I
anecdote.
have something to share.
Yeah, please come. Go ahead.
See, we've been talking about sharing of money. One of my friends, she shares her time. She has undergone depression, and at that time she didn't have anybody to talk to. So what she does now is, once she is fine, she identifies people who are left out or who feels low, and spends time going out of her way to listen to them so that they can open up and feel better. So I felt that is also coming under this category.
Time
Definitely.
and effort.
Definitely.
Most certainly.
Most certainly. And I would say those kind words, kindness itself, in some way, that is a lovely contribution which lifts up somebody. That's a wonderful way to do it. Yeah, Ram.
Okay. So did you do anything ordinary? Did anyone do? So let me quickly, there's a cousin of mine in the village, a young fellow, much younger than me. As a youngster, I thought he had a lot of potential. I thought he was smart. He decided to stay on in the village. They have a nice piece of land. He was also, could do, I saw some friends of his doing some little business nearby. But he would keep asking me, Ariana, send some money. I need for a bike. I need something. And I used to send it, but I used to keep telling him, when are you going to do something on your own? So maybe I bugged him more or what, I don't know. But whatever it is, he stopped talking to me, and he would deal with my brother, but he would not do anything with me. And I said, look, I've helped this fellow, ungrateful chap. Forget it. 3 years. Didn't call me, would visit Chennai, wouldn't see me, nothing. Then I heard that the local panchayat, and actually the local MLA, was giving him an award for his agricultural effort during COVID times. And that for all the thought, whatever we had been talking, but he had actually put it to action. And he was getting an award. So I just picked up the phone and called him to congratulate him. And he was absolutely delighted that I had called him to congratulate him. But what I found most surprising was, as if a huge weight had gone off my own shoulders. And I felt very happy just talking to him. And there were no more barriers, no more saying who should call who first, nothing like that. And just the fact that, we had a nice conversation. He sent me photographs of why he got all these prizes and how, things were growing so beautifully. All of that. He's put in a lot of effort. But to me, there was such a weight off my own shoulder and a joy in me to have just broken that ice. And I felt really good. It wasn't a big deal, but it took a huge weight off me. And I just thought, that is why we keep talking about, why don't you just break one of these molds and do something and different. So that is the story. Back to you, JK.
Thanks, Ram. This is what we were referring to, doing something ordinary, like, what we mentioned, of course, because of the COVID, we couldn't, but otherwise, take a bus ride, do things which we have stopped doing. And then when you do something ordinary, I shared this with all of you in an earlier session, where I found that when I took a ride in the local bus, 6 a.m., and I found this vegetable vendor trying to load her basket of vegetables into the bus early in the morning, quite heavy basket. Normally, the bus conductors would say, no, don't get in, all that. But I found that this particular conductor stepped down, helped her to lift that basket, get it in that front seat next to the driver, and then he helped her unload at the bus stop where she wanted to get down. I said, this is nice, yeah. It was just ordinary people, ordinary situations, but there are things which you pick up. There are things which you pick up, and that is the power of ordinariness, and that we wanted people to either do and share, and that really brings the various aspects and topics that we cover in this particular series. The next one, Saurav, the next slide, please. Again, back to you, Ram. You can, Saurav, you can list the first 5 lines in the Feed My Chennai story. The first 5 smaller bullets can get listed. Ram,
okay. So very quickly, last year when COVID struck and suddenly lockdown got announced, a number of migrant workers in Chennai got stuck. And they had no roof over their heads and no food, no earning, nothing. And there was no train or anything going back to their towns. So the corporation started gathering these people together and giving them some shelter. And then, because normally many people during floods and things like that are able to go out and help people, here with COVID, people couldn't even go out to give food or help. It had to be organized. So corporation reached out to somebody known to us, and they said, can you guys just organize some food for these guys and see what it is. So 5-6 of us, core team, came together. So what was the objective? How do we feed 35,000 meals a day per lunch, per meal? So lunch 35, dinner 35. How do we do this? How do we have it delivered? How do we make sure that it is actually going to the beneficiary? And just 5-6 of us very quickly got together and then reached out and asked people saying, can you support? What can we do? We then found one of the best 2 restaurants in Chennai, Annalakshmi and Taligai. They had corporate kitchens. And so we engaged them to make the food. So straight away, our anxiety about the quality of the food disappeared. We then found a bunch of volunteers who said, don't worry, we've got permission from the corporation. We will go and deliver. And 35,000 meals given every day for 4 weeks, after which these people started leaving back to their hometowns. About 1 million meals we gave. Not a day did the food reach late. Between 12:45 and 1:15, it was there. 100%. 1 million meals, volunteers. How to fund this? We just reached out and let it be known globally that we are doing something like this. Small checks, big checks just came in, and we raised nearly 4 crore rupees to fund this in that 4 weeks. All small. This is that Anil in Ramayan kind of effort. None of us had the ability to do 1 million meals ourselves. But coming together, each of us doing a little thing that we could, collectively, we were able to put together a team that gave away 1 million meals to these people. Just a little twist, many of them came, from north, and they said, is it possible that you give us chapatis at night? And quickly, Annalakshmi and Taligai managed to give chapati at dinner. So feedback that we got through the volunteers and the ability for these people to adapt. Happy. The corporation said in the past, whatever food was given, half the time it was thrown away because it was not good. Here it was being eaten fully. And often these volunteers took a little extra because all young people, wanting a little more or not, they were able to give. So the attitude of the volunteers, all individuals risking their lives, coming out and making sure these meals reached every day, morning and night, and people writing checks, small, big, whatever, 4 crores in 4 weeks. Amazing feeling of an Anil doing its little bit, and felt very great at the end of it all. And that's the story of Feed My Chennai, the power of the network that came together. JK?
So thanks, Ram. I want all of us to think about and respond. Therefore, in this whole thing, which do you think is a greater contribution? The money which was given by donors, the food that was carefully and hygienically prepared by the 2 restaurants, the actual last mile distribution by about, I think about nearly 100 odd volunteers, because it is right from Tiruvatiyur up to Sholinganallur. I mean, it's a huge belt, which needs about 72 corporation wards or zones, which needed to get covered every day, both in the afternoon and in the evening. Or it was just the core team contributing to some little bit in terms of coordination and stuff. What do you all think? Which of these do you think is the most important contribution? The money, the preparation, the coordination, or the distribution?
All of them. You wouldn't do without any.
Thought. Everything, somebody else is echoing you, Viren. Pragyan, everything.
Yeah.
I'm just reading out.
Yeah. Okay, next line, please. So again, just want to re-emphasize that even in this anecdote, the powering thought, the powering aspect is still, hey, is there anything we can do? That is the one which started it all. Yeah, it was the core group who came together, but without that powering thought. If it had been the reverse, saying, hey, why should we do anything here? Let the corporation look after all these people. It's not our responsibility. It's a government responsibility. That's it. It was gone. Want to come back to saying that while achievement is important, that contribution is a superior aspect, and the powering thought, I can do anything, helps achievement, but it is that powering thought, anything I can do, question mark, is there anything we can do that powers contribution? Any questions? Next slide. Thank you. Any questions we are, or any inputs? Anybody with something to share, please do. We have a few more minutes.
Hi, can I say something?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's just a personal thing which I wanted to share. Actually, my dad has had gone to Tirupati with my brothers and niece and mom and all. And I was in Chennai, and I just called him and said, okay, so you pray for me that God should be with me also. So at that time, I think he was on speaker and my niece was listening that. So suddenly my niece had a feeling saying that, how can God be with you, then he won't be with us. So yeah, so then like my dad was like, no, that's not the case. God is with all of us. And that sense of like what we are talking here is we feel if we are going to give others, we are going to lose it.
Correct.
Yeah, so that sense of helping others is not very common among everyone. It comes after some bad experiences maybe. Or maybe once you become a little more wiser, you have a lot of achievements. So recently, just in sync with that, recently I heard Sonu Nigam's song. Some new song had come in terms of God, where he was telling, I'll just tell this in Hindi, Soja, 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 तेरे संग मेरे साथ भी है भगवान सोजा. So yeah, so that was a very touching thing, which sometimes we feel that God is not with us, because when we want to when we are trying something and we are not able to achieve it, we have a sense of feeling like no, God is not with us. So that the actual thing is God is there with us.
Yep.
That's what I just wanted to say. I mean, I was not very emotionally stable, because after that my dad passed away during this COVID times. So always I used to think like God is not with me. So like I keep telling these words to myself, like tere sang mere saath bhi hai Bhagwan. So that gives me consoling that okay, God is with all of us, so we can help others.
Hey, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Any questions?
I think one question that actually remains is how do we imbibe these? Is it a cultural issue, or where do we actually people get to see this? So when I actually thought about this deeper, these things should be start from home, because the children are learning a lot from parents at home and how they behave. So how do we ensure that? Because when I go to office and when I see all these young employees, everybody thinks that this is not my work, or even if they don't try to kind of take it up, which they can. So how do we imbibe this?
So
Is
Raja,
a question.
Raja, the Bhagavad Gita says that what the leader does, not what the leader speaks, the rest follow. So even as a child, when my son was born, I asked my teacher, I want to bring him up properly. what do I do? He actually got angry with me. And he said, you don't do anything. You don't talk about anything. Just set the example. So whether at home or in the office, or as I said about that guy Prakash who picked up the chairs and distributed it, we all are able to see somebody doing something, we get motivated.
Yes.
Many people come and give speeches like we are doing now, and then we don't know, you don't know whether we have done anything useful. So it's okay, I've heard. But if you see actually from a childhood or as a boss, you set the example, your team will follow. So same thing, child or office, tata boss, no, yata boss, tata pragya, equal
Yes,
that
Ram.
they say.
That Bhagavad Gita quote is Yat Yat Acharati Shreshtaha
Correct.
Tat Tat Itaro Janaha. Sayat Pramanam Kurute Lokas Tat Anuvartate. They follow automatically.
Yep.
Yep. Great.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All
I think
right.
we've crossed time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Back to you, Saurav.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.